Okay, here we are. We're back with the orally transmitted teachings, page 43. This is we're going to start chapter 3, simile and parable. There are 9 important points. Point 1, regarding the simile and parable chapter, words and phrases, which would be tentai, volume 5 says hi, or simile means to compare one thing to another. You, or parable, means to enlighten and instruct. The Buddha's great compassion is unceasing, and since his clever wisdom is boundless, he goes farther and sways the trees in order to instruct them, the people of lesser capacity, concerning the wind, or holds a round fan to show them the moon. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, great compassion is like the mercy and compassion that a mother feels for her child. At present, it is the mercy and compassion of Nichiren and his followers. Chang'an, in his commentary on the Nirvana Sutra, says, one who rids the offender of evil is acting as his parent. Clever wisdom refers to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and to the doctrine that the teachings of the other schools do not lead to the attainment of the way. It also means that we are clever at difficult questions and answers. Chapter 15, Emerging from the Earth. When Words and Phrases Tentai says that the Buddha goes farther and sways the trees, you should understand that he set forth these similes and parables for the sake of the people in his time, and further for those who will come after the Buddha's passing in the middle day of the law, in the form in the middle of the day of the law. The swaying of he's not for the latter day of the law. When he says at a later time, he's not talking about Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Swaying of the trees represents earthly desires, and instructing us what the wind is means that we are taught that earthly desires are enlightenment. The round fan that the Buddha holds up is the realm of birth and death, and the moon shows us that the sufferings of birth and death are nirvana. Okay? So these are all obviously symbolic, and a normal person just reading this wouldn't know to be able to make those explications about that content. It says, now when Nichiren and his followers chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, they are, going on to page 44, mounting the vehicle of the great white ox and proceeding directly to the place of practice. Now, what's a great white ox? The great white ox is in that parable of the great white ox and the 3 carts. The kids are all in little carts, and he coaxes them away from the burning house by saying, hey, I've got a great white oxen out here. All right? So from chapter 3, simile and parable. On the words and phrases, Mielo, volume 5, says that this top of page 44, and again, the replacement of the white ox to replace the possessions of the 3 carts is representing the fact that Buddhahood is actually already contained within voice hearers, cause awakened ones, and bodhisattvas. Cause awakened ones and voice hearers don't make the cause to be able to attain enlightenment, though, because they're focused only on their own salvation. All right, that's the big criticism. That's why they supposedly have scorched their seeds, so to speak. All right, so bodhisattva is the key here as it relates to these 3 vehicles, which is what we are. We're all bodhisattvas, right? So on the words and phrases, volume 5 says the trees, the round fan, the wind, the moon. And it's not the 3 vehicles. These are the simile. These are simply symbols of the people of the perfect teaching. The trees, the round fan, the wind, the moon, these are simply symbols of the perfect teaching. Now, what's the perfect teaching? In the latter day of the law, it's Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. In the middle day of the law, it was the Makashikan. In the former day of the law, it was basically the Lotus Sutra. You had to make out of it what you could. It was only until Tentai clarified many of these things into concepts and formats that were essentially indisputable after much discussion about them, that we were able to make the advances in understanding the text in the deepest level. Okay, so these are simply symbols of the principle of the perfect teaching. The perfect teaching is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the full complete. It includes everything. That's what the perfect teaching is. So it really was a theoretical perfect teaching in the middle prior to the latter day. Only Nam-myoho Renge-kyo establishes the actual perfect teaching. It also says here on page 44, how should the true aspect of all phenomena as it is set forth in the preaching of the doctrine be something that is hidden for a time and again makes its appearance for a time? Rather, it is like an endless wind that never dies, or the moon in the sky that appears constantly. You should think about this passage of commentary. In other words, the law is ever present. It doesn't come and go. It's not based on you. It's based on the reality of life that you live in, the environment that you live in. Here, hiding refers to death, and appearing refers to birth. The endless wind is our breath, and the moon in the sky is the moon of our minds. The birth and death of the Lotus Sutra is something that abides constantly throughout the three existences of past, present, and future, not something that is hidden at one time and appears at another. So what he's talking about there is the continuity of existence between living in the phenomenal Dharma realm and being in a state of non-substantiality. Okay, you're no longer in the middle way. You're in non-substantiality. This wind that is our breath, when it blows, comes out in the form of words, right? Our breath is what allows us to communicate in language. It is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Every word, every aspect of us communicating and making sound is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. And the moon, which is the mind that perceives the truth, that allows the words that come out to be the truth, okay? And the moon is the enlightenment of the Dharma realm of the single mind, okay? So the Dharma realm of the single mind is to be able to see that you have no separation between anything in the entire Dharma realm. That's the actual truth that nobody can accept or believe because it's too unfathomable. But we have a connection to everything in the universe, whether you can understand or accept that initially now or not. At some point in the time, you'll understand because it's all just Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. And the moon that is the enlightenment of the Dharma realm of the single mind, that's your Buddhahood, that's your reward body, appears and abides constantly because it doesn't go away at death. That mind continues when the five aggregates come back together. The five components are going to come back together as the temporary gathering of the five components in each existence that you have. If you've created the cause to constantly always emerge from birth as the Buddha, okay, on the Buddha path, a process of expression for the sake of, out of mercy for others, to show them the way. That's what it means by constantly abiding. You constantly come back and do this again and again and again and again out of compassion for the suffering of others. This is what on the words and phrases Myolo means when it says these are simply symbols of the principle of the perfect teaching, because the perfect teaching teaches that kind of wisdom, that kind of compassion. It's 100% giving. It's not worried about receiving. The receiving has already been received. It's a reflection of the receiving. So perfect refers to the Dharma realm, and teaching to the intricate connections that bind together the 3,000 worlds. Okay? Principle refers to the single principle involved in the true aspect of all phenomena. That's beginningless time. That's Myoho Renge. That's Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Kuan Ganjo. Point 2 of Simile and Parable chapter on the bottom of page 44. Point 2, regarding the passage, at that time Shariputra's mind danced with joy, and he immediately stood up, pressed his palms together, gazed up in reverence at the face of the Honored One, and said to the Buddha, just now when I heard from the Honored One this voice of the law, my mind seemed to dance, and I gained what I had never had before. Okay, so That's actually an expression of Shariputra qualifying that based on what he's just heard, he just had the 6th-stage epiphany of realizing his personal innate Buddha nature. That's what that is saying, okay? Words and phrases, very top of page 45. Tentai, volume 5 says, in this passage that describes the outward signs manifested by Shariputra, joy, the words he immediately stood up, pressed his palms together, refer to his acknowledgement of the Buddha's words as it was expressed by his body. In other words, he went, whoa, dude. Okay? That's exactly what is being described as his reaction. All right? Words, the acknowledgement of the Buddha's words as it was expressed by his body. Previously, there had been 2 realms, the provisional and the true, which were like 2 palms that are not pressed together. But now it is revealed that the provisional is identical with the true, and it is the 2 palms that are pressed together. Gasho. As for the act of turning to face the Buddha, previously the provisional realm did not embody the cause for attaining Buddhahood, and the true did not embody the effect, that is, the attainment of Buddhahood, previously, up until the latter day of the law. But now it is revealed that the provisional teaching is identical with the true, and together they provide the great cause for the attainment of Buddhahood. It is a cause that will invariably lead to the realization of the effect. Therefore, the text says that Shariputra pressed his palms together and turned to face the Buddha. Okay, now that was all not the Daishonin. That was from Tentai's extrapolation from Words and Phrases, Volume 5. Okay, so now here's the Daishonin. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says Gasho, or pressing the palms together, is another name for the Lotus Sutra. Kobutsu, or turning to face the Buddha, means that one encounters and pays respect to the Lotus Sutra. That's why we do this to the Gohonzon constantly whenever we pass it. We don't just blow it off and walk by. We should always at least show the reverence to put our hands together and bow. That's what I do anyhow. So, Kobutsu, or turning to face the Buddha, which is facing the Gohonzon, means that one encounters and pays respect to the Lotus Sutra, the manifestation of which is the Gohonzon, and Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Pressing the sutra in the latter day is always Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay, so I could say that means that one encounters and pays respect to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which is exactly what I'm doing when I make that expression of obeisance to the Gohonzon and give it a nod. I usually chant 3 Daimoku as well. Means that one encounters and pays respect to the Lotus Sutra. Pressing the palms together is an element of the body. Turning to face the Buddha is an element of the mind, because you have to decide to do that. You have to have that actual attraction to the Gohonzon and not be able to just walk by it and blow it off. The passage describes how one dances with joy when one comes to the realization that the elements of the body and mind are the wonderful law. That's just your inner enlightenment manifesting so that you understand what the hell the deal is. All right, that's the 6th stage of practice, as described in the 16th chapter of the OTT. Again, gasho, or pressing the palms together, has 2 other meanings. Pressing means myo, or wonderful, while palms refers to ho, or the law, or phenomena as its manifestations. Again, we may say that pressing is the Lotus Sutra and palms are the 28 chapters that make it up. Or again, pressing is the world of Buddhahood and palms are the 9 worlds. So in other words, when they're separate, they're not Buddhahood. This is Buddhahood. That's what he's trying to qualify. Okay? Or pressing is the Lotus Sutra and palms are the 28 chapters, okay? Each bit of teaching in the Lotus Sutra that comprises the entire work makes up the Lotus Sutra. The pressing is when the entire teaching comes together as Myoho Renge-kyo, okay? That's when it's pressed, okay? when the 28 chapters are separated as they have been, or again, pressing is the world of Buddhahood and palms are the 9 worlds. You get the analogy, right? The 9 worlds are the provisional, the teaching that says that we cannot attain Buddhahood in our present form, while the world of Buddhahood is the true, the fact that we are already Buddhas exactly as we are. Thus, the great teacher Myolo, in his annotations on the profound meaning of the Lotus Sutra, Volume 4, stated, the 9 worlds represent the provisional. This is where you can practice different kinds of different things and you get some result. But you don't get enlightenment, you don't get true Buddhahood from that, unless you chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. The 9 worlds represent the provisional. The world of Buddhahood represents the truth. The 10 worlds are all contained within these 2 provisional, these 2 characters, Gasho. 9 worlds, enlightenment, or the countless phenomena of the 3,000 realms. There are none that are not a part of pressing, okay, that are not a part of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That's pressed, okay? Generally speaking, so it says there is nothing that's not a part that are not a part of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is what this is expressing. Okay, the top of page 46. Generally speaking, this Gasho represents the 3 types of lotus teachings, that is, the secret and hidden lotus, the basic lotus, and the openly expounded lotus. The Lotus Sutra we are speaking of now is the Lotus Sutra as it exists before being divided into these 3 types by people like Tentai and the whole priestly order that occurred in the middle day. Okay? However, again, but not the original teacher's teaching. The original teacher's teaching is a direct link between you and that teacher, and it's just to establish the reality of the original state and that you're just like me. Okay? That's all the original teacher's teaching is that you're just like me. However, the openly expounded lotus, which opens and unifies all the other teachings, is the Buddha's true meaning. The great teacher Dingyo points out that the words to the one Buddha vehicle, chapter 2, expedient means, represent the basic lotus teaching, which replaces the 3 vehicles with the one vehicle, reveals Buddhahood to those that are not named Shakyamuni, and that outside of the wonderful law, there is not so much as one line of any other sutra. And that outside of the wonderful law, okay, which is what? It's Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. There is not so much as one line of any other sutra, because all other sutras are contained within Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. All other sutras are contained within the Lotus Sutra, and the entire Lotus Sutra is contained within Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. And your life contains all aspects of the entire Dharma realm. So that's very difficult to get in your head. The only way you're going to be able to understand what this is really saying is through establishing a relationship with the Gohonzon that allows you to actually create this pervasive faith that he's talking about, which is actually a 3rd level of understanding. It's coming from your mind. It's not being put there by things you're listening to or reading. It's something that's it's a clarity that occurs about life. Okay? And so the middle of page 46, and I'm sorry it takes me so long to read. To turn to face the Buddha means to turn and pay respect to the sutra, each and every word of which is the golden body of the Buddha. And I just realized my nails are in terrible shape, pardon me. Is the golden body of the Buddha. The 2 characters Gasho embrace the entire Dharma realm. Thus, each and every being in the realm of hell or hungry spirits, as well as other phenomena in the 3,000 worlds, just as they are embraced in this act of pressing the palms together and turning to face the Buddha, this Gasho. For this reason, Shariputra himself is the entire Dharma realm. Shariputra is the Lotus Sutra. She stands for the truth of non-substantiality. Ri for the truth of temporary existence, and Putra for the middle way, the truth of the middle way. He is the wonderful law that is the perfect unification of the three truths, okay, those were the three truths. That was the perfect unification of the three truths that Daishonin had just qualified, that the individual Shariputra as a human being was actually all of these things at one time, okay? It talked about how he heard the Buddha's words and it brought this great joy about in his life. That was an inner realization that didn't come from the Buddha's words, it came from his life. And that's why the Daishonin is now saying that Shariputra, who's now attained Buddhahood, is the entire Dharma realm. Shariputra, who's now attained Buddhahood, is the Lotus Sutra, is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. She stands for the truth of non-substantiality. Ri stands for the truth of temporary existence, and Putra for the middle way. He is the wonderful law that is perfect, is the perfect unification of the three truths. By saying that about Shariputra, he is saying that about each and every one of us that has faith in his teaching. Shariputra is a Sanskrit word that may be translated as Shinshi, or body child. The body child is the body and the mind of the 10 worlds. Body represents the element of the body or form in the 10 worlds, on which without the body, the mind can never exist. Okay? And the child represents the element of mind in the world, because that's what keeps growing throughout your life. Okay? Throughout your life. Other than growing old with your body. Okay? Now, Nichiren and his followers who chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo are all Shariputra. So what I just said about Shariputra applies to every one of you. Okay, and that's what I was qualifying. Shariputra is none other than the thus come one Shakyamuni. So you're all Shakyamuni, you're all Shariputra, you're all the mystic law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the original state of all things. And the thus come one Shakyamuni is none other than the Lotus Sutra, which is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. And the Lotus Sutra is none other than the two elements in us, our bodies and our minds, because nothing exists in reality outside of our bodies and our minds in a single moment of life. We're the ones that experience that single moment of life. Each mind is the thing that experiences that single moment of life. That single moment of life is the only true reality, because it's what's expressed by the Dharma realm in that moment. All right? So, I'll say it again. From the bottom of 46. Now Nichiren and his followers who chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo are all Shariputra. Shariputra is none other than thus come one Shakyamuni. The thus come one Shakyamuni is none other than the Lotus Sutra, which we know to be Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. And the Lotus Sutra is none other than the two elements of our bodies and our mind. So that means our bodies and minds are none other than Nam-myoho Renge-kyo as well. This is the understanding that is spoken of in this chapter when we are told that this Shinshi, or Shariputra, heard this voice of the law. Heard refers to the stage of hearing the name and the words of the truth, or the second of the 6 stages of practice. Now, notice too, he's in the OTT. The 6 stages of practice has never been revealed before. Okay? It's been Tentai's 5 stages of practice. He's the one that's going to add Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and the realization of your true identity as the original teacher, as an originally possessing the 3 bodies. You've always been a Buddha. All right? Heard refers to the stage of hearing the name and the words of the truth, or the second of the 6 stages of practice. This voice of the law, ho, means the voice of all phenomena, shoho. The voice of all phenomena is the wonderful law. So the voice of all phenomena is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. This is what on words and phrases means, which is Myolo, means when it speaks of an endless wind that never dies, because continuously someone dies, but someone else is born. And the law lives in the single moment of life that the true believers, the true Buddhas, possess in the Dharma realm. Everything else is a delusion of that. All right? A defilement of it, actually. The endless wind is the voice and the sound of the Dharma realm. It is the voice and sound that the Belief and Understanding chapter of Lotus Sutra mean when it says, For we will take the voice of the Buddha way and cause it to be heard by all. By all means by all living beings in the Dharma realm, and the voice and sound is Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Continuing with point 3, regarding the passage, World Honored One, for a long time now, all day and throughout the night, I have repeatedly taxed myself with this thought. But now I have heard from the Buddha what I had never heard before. Okay, Shariputra has been hanging from the beginning. A law never known in the past, and it has ended all my doubts and regrets. Now he's talking about Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, but he's not talking about Nam-myoho Renge Kyo because it hasn't been revealed yet, but it has been revealed in his past existences. So this sense is the same thing. Okay, it's the effect of a cause that's been made previously. Okay, my body and mind, because he's made the cause for this to be the case, are at ease, and I have gained a wonderful feeling of peace and security that he created entirely for himself because of his faith in the Buddha's teaching. Words and Phrases, Tentai, Volume 5 says, from the Buddha, this signifies the attainment of joy through the body. Heard a law never known in the past. This signifies the attainment of joy through the mouth. Ended all my doubts and regrets. This signifies the attainment of joy through the mind. The record of the orally transmitted teaching says, my body and mind are at ease. Because of the realization that earthly desires are enlightenment and the sufferings of birth and death are nirvana. That realization is Buddhahood. All right? So he's saying, my body and mind are at ease because of the realization of Buddhahood that already exists in my life. Is what that is actually saying in this sentence. The body gains assurance through the realization that the sufferings of birth and death are nirvana. The mind gains assurance through the realization that earthly desires are enlightenment. From the Buddha indicates those followers who received the teachings from Nichiren, and the joy of the mouth indicates Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. That's always a joy that is emitted from anyone's mouth at any time that it is emitted. The joy of the mind comes about through the realization that one is no longer confused or hampered by darkness or ignorance. When we stop to consider the matter, we realize that this passage is speaking of the threefold contemplation in a single mind, finding the truth of the middle way, that it's not temporary existence, it's not non-substantiality, it's something of both, all right? And the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, okay, which we all understand is the theoretical predication for us to be able to express our Buddhahood in that stage 6. Or the fact that we can attain Buddhahood in our present bodies, as we're promised, and we are able to by attaining that stage 6 of practice. The expedient means of the provisional teachings afford no such feeling of ease, no such peace and security. This is why the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra tells us that persons who follow those teachings will travel perilous byways beset by numerous hindrances and trials. And that's the middle of page 48. We'll pause here and continue again next time. Thank you.